Hey folks, I'm Dennis. Today I'm going to show you how to change the front brakes on a 2007 to 2011 Toyota Camry. The car I'm working on today is a 2009 Camry, but within that generation they're all essentially the same. Of course, the first thing you have to do is jack up the car, put a jack stand under it so it's safe. You don't want to ever rely on a jack to hold up a car because they'll drift down. And then take the front tire off. We're just going to do one side because both sides are the same, so I'll walk you through one side, you'll be able to do the other. So let's get started. There are various brands of brake pad that you can buy. I prefer Bendix, so that's what I bought. This is one of their premium brake pads. They come with the hardware kit. I've already taken them out of the bag, but you've got the abutment clips, the squealers, which are the wear indicators, and the retainer clips, which spread the front pads out when they're not being used within the caliper. So I'll show you how to use all that once we get the old ones off. The first thing you're going to need is a 14 millimeter wrench. You need to have a 17 millimeter wrench available. There's the retainer bolt and the caliper, and then there's the guide pin. It's got a hex head on it too. The guide pin floats inside the caliper bracket. This is the caliper. This is the caliper bracket. This is a retainer bolt. This is the guide pin. There's a slide pin. There's a slide pin on the top and on the bottom. Retainer bolt top and bottom, and then you got a pad on the front and the back. Excuse me. This is the rotor. I'm not going to do anything with the rotors today because mine are in good shape. I've got no grooves or anything like that. They exceed the minimum allowable thickness a whole bit. So if I have to get into rotors later on, I'll do another video on that. But right today, I'm not going to talk about rotors. I'm just going to talk about changing the pads out. So sometimes when you take these retainer bolts out, the slide pin hex will also turn. This is 14 millimeter, this is 17 millimeter. If this turns when you're taking this bolt out, you got to put a 17 millimeter wrench on the slide pin to keep it from turning. Most of the time you don't have to worry about it. So we're gonna loosen that one up. We're gonna go to the bottom and loosen that one up. You can use a ratchet and a socket if you want. So this one's finger loose. I'm going to take the bottom one out. Some people will take both out and try to balance the caliper. I don't like to do that because I don't want to put undue strain on the flexible brake line, the rubber brake hose. So all I do is I rotate it up like so. Alright, so I'm just turn that up. This is the piston. We'll compress that here in a minute, but let's deal with the pads first. Okay, you can see you've got these two clips. They just pop out. They've got, well, one of them just fell out. They've just got little tabs on the end that go into holes that are on the back of the pads. And you pull the pads out one at a time. Now these pads are actually in good shape. They're fairly new, but I'm replacing them because they squeal like a beast. They're semi-metallic and they're just squealing so much that my wife drives this car and she can't stand it. So I'm going to put ceramics on here and see if I can't stop the squealing. This part here is what they call a squealer or a wear indicator. What happens is when the thickness of the pad is what you're looking for. As your brakes wear out, the thickness of this pad here wears down. Once it wears down to a certain point, this little squealer tab will rub on the rotor, and when it does, it'll make a gosh awful sound. So that tells you that your brakes are worn out and need to be replaced. It'll give you just a little bit of extra life before you're completely down to the metal. You don't want to get down to the metal in the pad because it'll wear out your rotors. So anyway, that's when we replace our brakes. Like I say, I'm replacing these today because they are really noisy. And I don't know what brand pads these are. but they're terrible. Some brake pad sets will not come with the hardware, and it's probably perfectly fine to reuse this hardware that's on here. For the front set, I chose to get new hardware, which is, I don't know if you can see that or not. Yeah, new squealers. And then also these abutment clips. There are 2 of each in a kit. You'll notice that they go, that the retainer clip goes in an opposite direction. So one's for the outside and then one's for the inside, the inboard side. So I'll show you how that works. There's 4 on this caliper bracket. There's one here, one up here, and one back here. So what I do to make sure I've got it right is, first of all, the clip goes, I think you can see this, the clip goes in such a way where it's pointed this way, and the end toward the rotor has to get pressed down to retain, to help position the brake pad. What they do is they help put a little bit of outward pressure on the pad so that it doesn't always ride on the rotor. When they ride on the rotor all the time, they squeal and they wear out quicker. So they just pop off like so. There's a couple of little clips on the back that pop onto this this recess spot on the caliper bracket. So, okay, that one came out like this. I'm just going to make sure that I've got the same one. That's not the same one because the clip's going in the opposite direction. There we go. Got a winner. So see how the clip, this clip here is the same. So this is the one we want. And you'll know if you got the wrong one, because if you try to put it in this way, it doesn't want to go inside of here because this part hits the rotor. So, and then this end is wider than this end. This is wider than this end. So it just pops down in there. And then make sure that you get it completely seated down in that hole. These little clips on the side snap down. So just make sure that's completely seated. And you're going to replace all 4 of these. This one goes in like so. Like I say, the end of the clip is what goes toward the rotor. So that's going to snap in like that. All the way up like that. That one snaps out, snaps in. And if you can't, if you're not comfortable with that, just get up underneath there and look up from this way. And you can tell when these top ones are in and the back ones are in, right? Or before you start, turn your wheel, like this is the right side of the car, turn your wheel to the right so that you can see all this a little bit better. It makes it a little simpler. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to unwrap my brake pad. The pads are the same, inboard and outboard. So now you're going to take this squealer clip, and this part here is what clips onto the brake pad, and then this part here goes toward the lining. Now be careful if you got grease on your hands. Dust is no problem, but don't get any grease or oil or anything like that on the surface of this lining, because that'll keep your brakes from working. So we want it to be like so that the end of that clip is on the lining side. And then that just snaps onto this ear like so. You got to work it on there. Drop it 2 or 3 times, make sure. Alright, so see how it just kind of, it's easier if you kind of rock it on there. Okay, so now it's on there correctly. You want the clips to be on the top of the pad because you spend most of your time going forward, and so you want the forward motion of the rotor to push the clip down. So since this is the inboard, it's going in like that. I want the clip on the top. Now what you got to do is, let me show you on the outboard side first. All right, so they're a little tight to get in here because of these squealers and because of these clips. So I'll get the bottom, I turn it this way, okay. I get the bottom in the slot and I get the top close. And then I rotate the thing in, but what you got to do is watch this squealer clip and make sure that it doesn't get stuck up here. You might have to press it down so it goes inside the abutment clip, and then just roll it in. If the ear on the pad is inside the abutment clip, top and bottom, you're good to go. That's all you got to do. Now the back one is a little bit harder because you can't see it as well. So like I say, sometimes what's easier to do is just turn your wheel to the side you're working on. On the left side, you're going to turn it to the left. On the right side, you're going to turn it to the right. And then that way you got a little bit clearer view of the back side of the caliper bracket. If you've done a few of these, you probably won't have to do that. Okay, now you'll also notice that there's a shim on the back of the pad. Now some shims are different. So these pads that I'm taking out, the shims are steel. The ones on these Bendix pads, these premium pads, I don't know what they are. I think they're carbon fiber or some kind of synthetic maybe, but they're supposed to eliminate the brake squeal that Camrys are so common to get. So we're going to try these and find out. But the next thing we have to do is compress the caliper piston. As the brake pads wear out, this caliper piston comes out further and further. In order to get it over the brake pads, we have to compress it a little bit. Now you'll have all kinds of people argue about how to do it. If you don't have to compress it very far, like this one is not out very far. If your brakes are shot out and this piston is out, 3/4 of an inch, you're going to need to either open up the bleeder valve, which is back here, or at least take the cap off the master cylinder reservoir under the hood, because you're going to build up too much back pressure. In this case, as long as I go slow and steady, I don't have to worry about that. So since my caliper's not out way far, I'm just going to take an old brake pad, because I'm not going to use these pads anymore, and I'm going to take a pair of channel locks, and I'm going to put my channel locks on the brake pad in the back of this caliper, and I'm going to just give it kind of a gentle squeeze. I don't have to really crank down on it. You may have to use a little bit of force, but go gentle. Don't do it like all at once. Some people use a C-clamp. A C-clamp's a very good tool for this. You can put one side of the C-clamp here, put the other side back here, squeeze it together. There's even a tool you can buy for caliper compression. It goes right in here, and there's a bar that fits across these ears, and then you tighten it up and it pushes it back. But essentially all you're trying to do is get it back here to where the piston itself, this ring is metal and this is all rubber. That's the boot. You want all that to be flush. That'll let it go over the brand new brake pads. So we got that done. Now you don't want to do this part too early, because it'll pull your brake pads out of these clips, and since they're kind of a pain to get in the clip, you want to do this last. So let me show you this. I'm going to show you on an old shoe. I don't know if you can see it in this or not, but there's a hole right there in the plate of the pad. There's a hole here and there's a hole here. That's what the little ear on these spring clips go into. So what you want to do, they're shaped so that they come down this way just a little bit. So of course the ears are going to point toward the pads because they have to go in the holes, and then this is going to point toward the middle of the caliper. So you just squeeze it together get one end in the hole, and then squeeze it together with your fingers and put the other end in the hole, and it'll go in there like that, you see. Now when you do that, start holding on to these pads, because if you don't, these clips are strong enough to where they'll kick them out, and then you got to fight with them to get them back in these abutment clips. That's why you want to compress your caliper before you do this. Pop that in there. So that's how those clips are going to be. And then we're going to just rotate that caliper onto the shoes. Now once you get it kind of on this first ear on the shoe, the pads I mean, then you're fine. You may have to push in, you may find that you have to push in the slide pin to get the ear of the, on the bottom, to get the ear of the caliper over it, because it may have stuck out. So you just slip it in, and then that'll let you get the ear of the caliper. Let me see if I can get around there where you can see that. I think you can see that. Okay, slip that around like that, and then get your retainer bolt in there. You may have to kind of wiggle that around to get it to line up with the threads. Just don't cross thread it. Alright, and then you just tighten them up. Now I've read a couple of places, I don't have a repair manual for this car, I've read a couple of places that the torque spec is 25 foot-pounds for these calipers. So I'll be honest, I've never torqued them with a torque wrench. I probably should. I just snug them up pretty good. They don't have to be like crank down on them tight, but like I say, I understand the torque spec is 25 foot-pounds, so if you're a stickler about torque specs, which probably everybody should be, that's what you want to do, is get your torque wrench out. Okay, so once you've got both of the caliper bolts, retention bolts in there, then you're good to go. There are some things that you can check during a brake job. If you're doing a brake job on like an older car, if it's got a lot of rust, things like that, check and make sure that these slide pins move in and out. Once you've got the caliper off, you probably want to take it off and check top and bottom. This one's been recently checked, so I'm not worried about it. They're lubricated. If the slide pins don't push in and out of the caliper bracket easily, then you want to pull the boot back, put a little bit of you'll have some grease that comes with the brake set. If not, you can buy some at the parts store that's specifically for brake parts. Like I say, now don't ever put grease or anything on the face of the lining or on the rotor, because that'll destroy your brakes. But the guide pins sometimes will need to be lubricated. Anyway, other than that, once you tighten these up, you're fine. Check your brake fluid, make sure it's all good. So that's it. Now you know how to do the front brakes on the Toyota Camry. Thanks for watching my video. I appreciate you checking it out, and please look at the other videos I've got on my channel. I've got several other videos about the 2007 to 2011 Toyota Camry that may come in helpful. Thanks again. Please subscribe, and I hope to see you back soon. Bye.